The Literal Form of Violence, my first ever full production studio album. Recorded in 2007, it was the jump-off point for my music reaching a larger audience. Recorded at both Turtle and Greenhouse Studios in White Rock and Vancouver, BC. To this day, songs from The Literal Form of Violence remain my most played and most beloved amongst my small but slowly growing fan base. In 2006, I had inked a deal to record my first studio album. It was my moment to shine. I put my best foot forward and brought what I felt to be all my best songs to the table, in an effort to create something timeless, and also show the world my vision for what rock should be in the 2000s. The sound I was seeking, cliche as it may be now, was epic. With The Literal Form of Violence, I wanted to make a concept album. I truly wanted to write my opus and show the world that I'm creating art on more than just a surface level. I don't know if I really accomplished that goal due to some of the decisions I made, or that I guess I allowed others to make for me, but it remains a project that I'm immensely proud of. Back before we all had phones and could stream a song in an instant, I walked around with burned CDs in my pocket with my phone number on them. These CDs were an acoustic demo of songs I recorded at home by myself on my old PC using Adobe Audition, titled The Fighting. The Fighting was an amalgamation of solo songs as well as acoustic reimaginings of the songs I'd written for my metal band Shiver, whose tenure had now unfortunately ended. I brought that demo to producer Jay Evgen, and with the help of my friend Alec Von Hensky, Wayne Solga, Scotty McCarger, and my old pal Matthew Presidente, we began working on what would become The Literal Form of Violence. Between arranging the songs, adding parts, switching a bridge here and there, we managed to cherry pick nearly every riff off The Fighting to become the 11 songs that we recorded for The Literal Form of Violence. So let's go through it. And I'll tell the story of the songs, track by track, on Story of the Song. It was November 2005. I was at home in my place in Ladner, BC, and I was just finishing recording this demo for this new song when two of my friends came over. I played them the new song and they thought it was awesome. It was a step toward that epic sound that I was looking to try and create. They hung out and I did a quick mix. And since my pals were there, I layered their voices over the bridge part as well. I love gang vocals. I love crowds of people singing on a recording. And looking back, I think this is the first example of me including that in my writing. And since I added their voices to the session, I jokingly pitch shifted one of their voices really far down. And it sounded like a Sasquatch. And we laughed really, really hard. So when it came time to title the song, I wrote in, Sasquatch Party! With a few exclamation points. That title not only birthed an entire series of songs, but became the name of the street team for our hard rock band at the time, Shiver. And what began as a new acoustic demo had evolved into, at the time of writing this, 4 different sequels and become a steady thread through Pedwell releases to this day. It was at this point, unfortunately, much like in real life, that the Sasquatch was hidden away. And the title of the song was changed to Live Again for the release of The Literal Form of Violence. Because quite frankly, the song really had nothing to do with the Sasquatch. But let's dig deeper. Upon writing Sasquatch Party in November 2005, I took that bedroom demo and I brought it to my band. We worked out a super heavy, full band version, and at the time we were playing shows regularly around the Lower Mainland, and Sasquatch Party became a fan favorite, and eventually a staple in our live set. Especially the crescendoing gang vocal bridge that kind of lent itself well to a sing-along. The popularity of Sasquatch Party, at least among our small listener base, gave me the confidence to continue writing similar music, and resulted in the writing of a sequel, Return to Sasquatch Party, aka Sasquatch Returns, the sister song to Sasquatch Party. I brought Return to Sasquatch to the lads and we worked out a live version even more epic than the original. It too became a staple of our live set. And between those two songs, often took up about 20 minutes of our 30 to 40 minute sets. Now, since my initial goal with The Literal Form of Violence was to make a concept album, Live Again was to be a combination of both Sasquatch Party and Return to Sasquatch Party, with an intro before it and an outro reprising it at the end of the album. Why did that never happen? Label red tape. For one reason or another, we weren't able to get the intro and outro mastered, so they never made it on the official release of the album. And it wasn't until months after that we actually received the files of the intro and outro.
You got mail.
I have, however, mastered them and uploaded them to my Bandcamp in the deluxe edition of The Literal Form of Violence. Originally just titled the Roman numeral for 3, the 3 representing, yep, you guessed it, Sasquatch 3, aka Sasquatch Forever. It borrows chords and themes from Sasquatch Party, but was written to be less of a sister song and more of a close cousin, I guess. There's also now kind of a Batman tribute going on with the song titles. Sasquatch, Sasquatch Returns, Sasquatch Forever, etc. that I never really formally acknowledged until now. At this point, I'd already started working on my The Fighting demo that I was sending to labels trying to get signed to a deal. When our producer Jay heard it on The Fighting demo, I remember him saying he knew exactly what he wanted to do with it production-wise to take it to the next level. And I'm almost certain he was talking about this 3 Days Grace ripoff part. After we had all the instruments tracked, I also had the idea to turn the bridge, that was originally just a solo, into kind of a pirate shanty. It was sung as a gang vocal by myself, Alec, and our friends Kyle and Miguel. Sasquatch 1, 2, and 3 are all finally back in their rightful place as the first 2 tracks on the Literal Form of Violence Deluxe Edition, which is on my Bandcamp right now. Lay It On Me holds a special place in my heart. It was the first song that I ever had played on the radio.
This is brand new for Pedwell with the Mighty Fox.
I wrote the original demo in roughly 2004, around the same time I wrote songs like Believe. I just formed Shiver with my friends Chris, David, and Ryan. Lay It On Me was performed at our very first show ever at the Media Club. It also became one of the first 3 songs that we ever recorded as a band in the studio. It was around that point in time that I also began performing as an acoustic duo with local singer-songwriter and pianist Matthew Presidente. We performed all over the place under the simple moniker Matt and Brad. We had a residency at one of Vancouver's scummiest but liveliest gay bars, the Dufferin, for just under 2 years. We grew a small, yet loyal following that came to see us perform our original music together weekly, and Lay It On Me became a fan favorite thanks to the "Lovin' You is murder, murder" lyric that kinda caught on as a fun crowd participation moment. Since it was being so well received, Lay It On Me shot to the top of my list of songs to record for the Fighting demo. We did, however, remove the murder, murder part that people love so much. The bridge to this studio version of Lay It On Me was actually from a song called Top 10 List, which was on my second album, Emerged, and then reimagined for my A Different Kind of Hero 2 release as the song AM/FM. Lay It On Me has evolved many ways throughout the years, but this remains the definitive version in my eyes. Loving you is Egocentric. Egocentric is the dark horse, the sleeper track of the Literal Form of Violence album. The Grower. I always kind of treated it as a throwaway, to be honest, but over time it's become one of my personal favorite tracks on the whole album. Egocentric began as a weird, atmospheric interlude on my second album, Emerged. After bringing it to the Shiver guys with some riffs attached to it, it quickly evolved into a riffy metal version that we performed a handful of times. When I began recording the Fighting demo, I tried a version that pulled out a lot of the metalcore style riffs and converted it back to a more acoustic style version. The riffs that I pulled out would eventually become a song that I released on SoundCloud called Reclaim My Name.
I survived, I'm all yours, lost my pride, cut my source.
The Fighting demo version, however, is the version of Egocentric that would become the key-changing epic that it is today. Something I most notably remember in the literal form of violence version is the addition of the vocal by Miguel Stanton in the choruses. You were long dead, but you won't lay down. It's probably the best vocal on the record, and I didn't even do it. A grower, not a shower, only the egocentric fall away.
Only the egocentric fall away.
Let It Fade. Originally titled Angel of the Dark. Written on a solo classical guitar. Like the rest of the songs at the time, I had a solo version that I played at shows, and a separate metal version that I played with Shiver. The end result for the Literal Form of Violence album was an amalgamation of both those versions. We added pianos, a falsetto background vocal in the chorus, also by Miguel Stanton, which colored the song with almost a Pixies tinge. The big light bulb moment, however, was when we realized that we could use the big riff as the verses, and it created a much more driving song. Way Down Below. Way Down Below was written at a time that I needed the world to see me in a different light. It's my most streamed song of all time and has reached the most countries of any of my songs. Why? I think probably the lyrical content. Like all songs from this era, Way Down Below was written on a solo acoustic guitar. It had some different lyrics in places, but it didn't really change form too much. However, there's a problem with the bridge in that it was kind of this jerky, off-putting thing that didn't take the song anywhere new and just, I don't know, wasn't strong.
Honest, carefree, aloof, surly, bitter, jaded, how we related and...
As I've matured as a songwriter, I've learned that the bridge of the song should take the listener somewhere new entirely, to an entirely different land, let them see an entirely different new color. And when I brought this demo to the table, the team, and especially Jay, he thought we needed a new bridge. Enter Wrong End of the Knife. Wrong End of the Knife was an entirely different song on the Fighting demo. It was the very last song written for it, and ended up being pillaged and turned into two different songs. The bridge of Way Down Below, and the chorus of the Literal Form of Violence. As you can hear, what began as the verse of Wrong End of the Knife ended up as the bridge to Way Down Below. Based on the fact that I was leaving the country, all my friends behind to pursue my dream elsewhere, Way Down Below has always held a place in my heart. And while I've never really admitted it before, the lyric I'll Come Back For You was inspired by the Butterfly Effect, the Ashton Kutcher movie. All that you see and all that you know is not really me, way down below. Waterfall. Waterfall has the longest history of any of my recorded songs. My very first band ever was called High Maintenance. We changed our name about 100 times, like Mouse Rat. Names that I can remember were Slide, Under the Influence, and Distant Conviction. We jammed on Wednesdays at Tawasin Alliance Church, on their big stage, using their big PA system. It was actually a really awesome way to cut your teeth. We started writing our own original music, and one day I wrote the song, And I Feel Like. We even got the drummer's dad to come record us onto a cassette tape. And this is that exact recording.
Give you all of my love, girl. Give you all of my love, girl. Ooh,
Anything sound familiar in there? This demo eventually became 2 separate songs in the future. Anastasia, off my album Running Away from Yesterday.
Anastasia, you're the only one for me.
And of course, Waterfall, which would be released on my album Emerged.
All the planes shot down, and all the lights are flashing, but I think
Modified for the fighting,
that I love you. If I didn't have to kill myself to do it, I'm sick of this shit.
and eventually reimagined for the literal form of violence.
Take a load off of my shoulder, take it onto your back, make me feel like I'm a crucifix in my life, and you're taking it back.
When my band Shiver was kind of on its way out in 2006, Waterfall was making its way in. And we actually played Waterfall with Shiver once at an unplugged gig at the Media Club. Also, I'm not here to lie to anybody. I wrote Waterfall when I was on the toilet. I brought my guitar in the bathroom and I wrote it there. I wrote it on the throne, all in one session. And in many ways, I think that's beautiful. Save it for tomorrow, and one hand on the gun. Depending what version of the literal form of violence you own, Save It for Tomorrow might not even be on it. Save It for Tomorrow was one of my most popular live songs, and it was the curtain jerker for nearly all my sets. Basically a bleeding heart love song with quirky lyrics. Our producer Jay didn't think we needed to change the song very much structurally. So in relation to the fighting demo, its structure changed the least out of any song aside from maybe Waterfall. An alternate version was recorded with producer Barry Upton when Alec and I were in England. I remember Alec convincing me to make this grunt sound in the middle of the song that kind of ruined the recording. Thanks, Alec. I still break out that song every now and again at a live gig. One Hand on the Gun was originally meant to be one of the singles on the literal form of violence. It was our bassist Wayne's favorite track, but once we started pre-producing the song, we realized it deserved to be fleshed out to be a longer kind of album track. One Hand, though, has some notable moments, like the female vocal contributed by my friend Amanda Wolski.
I keep one hand on the gun.
Or the super dry vocal in the bridge.
Fight fire with flame some other day.
Or the extended jam at the end of the song, where Scotty, Matthew, and Alec all have a fun, kind of loose jam over the main chord progression. One Hand on the Gun wasn't on the independent release for similar reasons to Save It for Tomorrow. The cymbals were also super high in the mix, so the quality just wasn't really up to par in comparison to the other tracks. Both songs are, however, on the deluxe version on my Bandcamp and on the official release that's on Spotify. The literal form of violence. The title track began as a song about Columbine High School and the school shootings happening. A song about how we must protect our children from the darkness of this world. As I mentioned earlier during the Way Down Below segment, the literal form of violence was born from the fighting demos Wrong End of the Knife and one called Stoned Jam.
You can feel it in the darkness, you know. Close your eyes and see where it takes you. Let the blood fill the cup just to not die in vain.
This song was played live the least of any of the songs in the literal form of violence, but was played live a handful of times. I remember vividly explaining to Alec that for the solo, I wanted to feel like he's up on a mountain with his hair blowing in the wind as he triumphs over evil. And dude nailed it. That's what it feels like. The gang vocal that ends the song, and that ends the album, was sung by 15 to 20 of our friends that all came down to the studio on the last day of tracking. It was a moment that I'll never, ever forget. We did gang vocals for Waterfall, Literal Form of Violence, and Sasquatch. Eventually, I wound up taking that same gang vocal and sampling it for the chorus of the song Down and Out on my hip-hop release, West End Apartment. Restitution. In 2003, I began receiving threats from this guy that swore he was going to kill me. I was freaked out. I was worried. No, I was certain that this guy was going to show up at my house at any moment and kill me or hurt me. I didn't really tell anybody except for my mom. I lived in fear every day until I gathered up the strength to write a song as kind of a catharsis. I wrote lyrics asking God for forgiveness and telling the world who I really was in case I was indeed murdered. Restitution is the first example of me doing at a young age, though, that which I think has become my purpose as an adult, which is speaking the truth about my struggles as a way to help others. It also inspired the title for Shiver's first demo, You Can't Kill What You Can't Find. At the time, one of our friends had a home studio in Tawasin, BC. I had just recorded my Snake Eyes album there, and had also been recording stuff for Matthew Presidente's album Buckle Up Matty P that was coming out soon. So I went into the studio, I explained the arrangement to the engineer, who volunteered to drum on it, and so he played the drums, I played the guitar and the bass, and then Matthew Presidente came in later and added organ tracks and an organ solo. And then Restitution was born. It was also around this point when Matthew and I began our tenure at the Dufferin. We needed to fill 2 sets of music, so we both brought literally all of our songs to the table as potential songs to perform. Restitution, thanks to the additional melodic piano parts and a harmony throughout the entire song by Matthew, evolved into one of our most popular live songs. However, Restitution was not on the Fighting demo, as in my eyes, it was already established as a song because of how popular it was with Matt and Brad. Restitution almost didn't make the cut on the Literal Form of Violence. Originally, we had a song called Pieces, slated to be in that spot. It was a tribute to a friend of mine who had passed away. But when Jay heard Restitution, he was like, dude, why aren't we doing this song? So it made it on the album after all. Aside from arranging parts in a few different places to make the song flow better, we pretty much left Restitution alone. We added a jazz-esque drum bridge and removed a couple riffs that kind of slowed the song down. And in the end, in A Different Kind of Hero Season 1, I finally got my restitution.
What are you doing?
Finally getting my restitution, you son of a bitch.